Welcome back, everybody. Today we are talking about the phantom fears in chess. You know, chess is such a psychological game. It's so much also the story that you're telling yourself rather than pure objectivity and the truth. And I've witnessed as a coach so many times that people lose games because of the phantom fears that they were having in their minds, right? They were perceiving phantom threats, not real threats, and they were acting in a very passive way, and that was causing the defeat itself. So in this video, I will first of all show you what phantom fears is, the definition of it, great examples. Then we will also talk about how to distinguish between phantom fears and real fears, phantom threats and real threats. And finally, I will also tell you, right, potential solutions to this problem. Let's begin with this example. I love this example. Imagine that the opponent's last move was queen b6. You can stop the video and tell me what the best move is for white. Now, for those of you who need more support, remember, whenever the opponent makes a move, the first question always should be, am I facing a threat? What will be their next move if I don't make a move right now? That's always the first question that you must automatize in your brains, right? So let's go through this together. What are you seeing? Is, for example, queen takes b2 a threat? You tell me. No, because I can make a random move, and if they capture on b2, well, the queen is trapped, right? If you look one move deeper, you will identify that queen takes b2 is not a threat. But in the actual game, the white player just went habitually b3 without even asking himself, right, whether the threat was real or phantom. In this case, we are talking about phantom threats. Queen b6 doesn't really threaten queen takes b2, and white is reacting to a phantom threat, you see? Okay, what is the best move for white in this position? We are coming to an interesting point. This is called the drawback principle, folks. What was the drawback of the opponent's last move? Right, the drawback is that the queen no longer guards these two pieces. Can white exploit it? Yes, white can. If you found e5, congratulations, you're a great player because everything is forced. The knight must move because the bishop is hanging, right? It's a very forcing move. And after takes, you see the bishop on d7, right? The queen no longer guards it, so we can remove the defender and take a piece. White gains a piece with a winning position. Beautiful, beautiful, right? So in this video, we'll talk about how we should also exploit the opponent's last move instead of just passively reacting to their threats, right? Because this is the first step of playing good chess, gaining objectivity, asking yourself all the good questions, and resist being over passive. In the openings, phantom fears manifests itself when the enemy makes an unexpected move. For example, here, black goes e5. And white has never seen this move before, and he panics. He becomes overcautious. He's surprised. He doesn't know what he's doing because he's never seen this move before. And phantom fears kick in, and white, after taking on d5, goes e3. Oh my god. And white is burying his own bishop. You see, it's a perfect example of phantom fear. The opening surprise is causing this passive play from white. Instead, obviously, white should take the pawn because you can defeat terrible moves by usually capturing the offer. And white has many different ways actually to handle this. You can even go like this, knight f3, followed by g3 and bishop g2. And white gains a beautiful structure with a much safer king. And the black king is still here. And white has no worries. So again, in this example, we see that opening surprise can cause us to go passive. Instead, we should always remain objective. Whenever the opponent makes a terrible looking move, well, we should try to punish it, right? Instead of reacting in a very passive way like this with e3, right? So this is how you become an objective player. This is how you sort of punish the opponent's terrible moves in the opening. But if you're lacking confidence, right? If you're afraid of losing, if you're scared of novelties, then phantom fears can also play a role in your games. Please watch out for such tendencies, folks. Phantom fears can also kick in if your calculation skills are poor. If you don't trust your calculation ability, then, right, you start hand waving. You start like reacting in very passive ways. You refuse, for example, in grabbing extra material. Look at this position, right? Black just hit the knight on b5. Instead of moving the knight, white goes for queen h5. Well, he's going for an attack on the king side. But the question is it real or phantom threat? Well, you stop the video and you tell me the best move for black in this position, folks. Yes, the best move is thank you so much for giving me the knight. You take on h6, so what? You only have queen and knight, and I can challenge your queen with queen f6. So here the white queen has to go to h3 to be able to stay on the board. But if you just take a step back, black is an extra piece and white only has these two guys. Is the black king unsafe? No, because look at those pieces, right? Again, it's of course lacking good calculation skills, but also in this case, right, misjudging the enemy piece activity, right? Overcautiousness, overestimating the opponent's position that caused black to refuse capturing an extra piece, right? Because, I mean, there are only two pieces and black has several resources. For example, black can in this position go queen g6. Let's say after knight h5, preventing king g7, we can go g4, followed by bishop d8. There are several resources for black. But in this position, you just see that, well, the white queen has no way to guard this knight on h5. So black obtains a complete winning position. Again, going back, folks, right? Going back. In this position, hit the knight. Sometimes this happens, right? Especially in lower levels. Oh, the enemy makes a random looking attack and we get scared and we pull back the pieces instead of capturing the enemy pieces and punishing them for that, right? So I'm talking about this because in this case, I think it's also a calculation problem. It's, fear of a sacrifice, because some players are really fearful when the enemy sacrifices material, as in this case. It's like, oh my god, my king side is collapsing, I have to refuse this. And in the actual game, black actually refused to capture the knight and go queen f6, and the white actually was saving himself after knight a3. So we should also learn to look at the downsides of the enemy moves so that we can actually have the power and courage to punish them in our games. Now, let's play some games, right? I will show you some positions. Some of them, they involve real threats, and some of them involve phantom threats that you should be avoiding, right? So it will be your judgment, your call to figure out, right, when it's actually a real threat you're facing. So you should be cautious and sense of danger should kick in, and when actually they're just phantom threats on the board, right? Let's look at this position. It's black to play, folks. The question is, should black play f5 in this position? Do you think that's a good move? Congratulations if you said yes, because my student in the actual game refused to play this move because he thought, hey, I'm exposing my king, right? Again, phantom threats around the king's safety. He doesn't want to push pawns around the king because of this overgeneralization that something might happen to my king. Instead, if you just take a step back, you see that there's nothing going on after f5. My king is so safe on g8. It's actually the white king who is unsafe, and black actually wants to open up lines on the king side to use the great pieces to start hitting and attacking the white king. Look at the white pieces. They're on terrible spots on the queen side. There is nothing going on in terms of an attack for the white pieces against our king. Our king is safe. So in this case, not pushing f5 would be a phantom fear, right? f5 is the best move. Of course, there are different ways the game can go. We can activate the rook like this, for example, and start doubling up. I love this idea, right? We start doubling up. We put every single piece on the f file with bishop g3, follow it up with rook f2. Black obtains a crashing, attacking position. Second position. In this position, white goes bishop d3. The question is, should black castle short, or do you think that's too scary? Is it a real threat or phantom threat or phantom fear, folks? You tell me. Please stop the video and figure out for yourself. Folks, castling short in this position is not good at all. And you tell me why. Yes, the Greek gift is coming, right? A typical Greek gift sacrifice, bishop takes h7, works like charm for white because of his great pieces who can join the attack directly, right? In this case, this was a real threat we were facing. Black has no defense. In the actual game, black tried this, but that doesn't save him. After this, bishop a3, he resigns because the real threat is actually now this followed by this, and black has no defense against his attack. Beautiful attacking pieces for white, terrible defensive pieces for black, and the game is over. So going back to this position, in this case, this was a real sense of danger that should kick in for black, right? Before castling short. In the actual game, he didn't care about the opponent's resources. Black castle short, and he paid for it. And that's why we are doing this training, because sometimes, yeah, Actually, most of the times, your opponent's ideas and threats should be taken very seriously, folks, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you should just, ignore the enemy moves and only focus on your own ideas. No, we should have a balance, right? We should have the right balance in chess. But accurate judgment of the threats is so crucial. In this case, there are so many signals, right? The knight cannot reach f6, for example. h7 is lacking defenders. White can quickly shift the pieces to the king side. It's an attacking pattern that you must have studied before, right? The Greek gift pattern. Once you know it, then your sense of danger should improve for the black's perspective, right? Obviously, black should do something else. Maybe move like h6, right? Black should take it slowly before deciding on the king location yet. And the game should go like this. Another question, folks. Please decide on the location of the white king in this position. Should the white king go castle short or castle long in this position? You will judge using your sense of danger and the ability of perceiving potential dangers for your king, okay? Congratulations if you said castle short, because the king will be very safe on the king side in this position. No one can attack our king, and the game is roughly balanced, let's say. In the actual game, white player goes castle long, and well, you tell me, folks, what do you think about the king's safety on c1? I don't think this king is very safe. First of all, look at this black bishop just pointing towards our king. Second of all, look at this pawn on c3. That's a hook pawn for black to potentially open up lines on the queen side. Black's pieces are perfectly placed to hit the king that is living on the queen side right now. So going back, you need to have an accurate sense of danger to refuse the move castle long, which happened in the actual game of one of my students. Okay, and check how quickly black's attack is evolving. Black can even go b5 in this position, by the way, because if you take that pawn, well, you only have the black piece, because black will say thank you very much for opening up files. And now a4 is coming with tempo, right? a3 is coming, and black is managing to destroy the pawn chain on the queen side, activating the rook, activating this bishop. And if you go b3, you tell me the next move. Yeah, the game is over after knight b4, because there's no way for white to hold on to this or this pawn, and these are just collapsing. Things are collapsing for white in this position. So what's the lesson? Yes, choosing our king's location in the middle game is one of the most committal things you can do in a chessboard, right? Because that's an extremely committal decision. So your sense of danger should really be alert in such cases. In this case, yeah, the signals were there, right? This queen, this knight, this bishop, pawn storm potential, the hook pawn on c3, they're all the signals for us to use to make the accurate judgment. Compared castle long with this, right? It's impossible for black to attack our king in this structure. Another interesting position here, folks. White just goes h4 in this opposite side castling position. The question is, what should black do in this position? Are you facing a real threat or a phantom threat? Please identify it first and come up with a really good multi-purpose move for black. First of all, congratulations if you identify h5 as a real positional threat, because then your knight will be a buried piece on h8, right? White is pushing the pawns on the king side, obviously, because this will be a very sharp attacking pawn storming middle game. So h5 is a real threat you're facing. So what should black do? That's my question. Congratulations if you found the great move h5 in this position. Many players would never play this move because of phantom fears, right? Oh, I'm just weakening my king. I'm pushing a pawn on the king side. I shouldn't do a move like this out of general principles and not because of concrete calculation and analysis. h5 does two things, folks. Very important two things. It stops h5, but more importantly, perhaps, it also stops queen g4, because that queen was just about to transfer to the king side with potential ideas like h5 and even knight takes d5 followed by queen takes d7, right? Talking about sense of danger, right? We should be really alert to the opponent's resources as well. It doesn't mean that we should become very cautious and passive, but in a sharp position like this, we should really take the opponent's ideas seriously. And h5 is a great move. a6 was up in the game, but that's only helping white because, of course, h5 is on the board and black just goes crazy with b5, because after queen g4, suddenly black is facing knight takes d5 followed by queen takes d7 idea, and the knight has to go to h8 and you're destroyed, right? You're destroyed in this position after knight takes d5. So black did not care about the opponent's ideas and he lost the game because of that, right? Again, This really shows us how deep the chess game is. It's a very complex game. We should always judge whether the threat is real or phantom and take actions accordingly, right? H5 is a nice multi-purpose move. Black is taking his time to stop all these moves. And then you can focus on your plan, by the way, right? A6, B5 is coming on the queen side, obviously. And then your play will begin on the queen side. But your knight is stabilized and you stop the white's pawn storm on the king side. Beautiful example, folks. I was very happy when one of my students who committed the first crime I show you in this video actually managed to find the best move here with black in this position. So your g7 pawn is under attack. What should black do in this position, folks? You tell me. Congratulations if you found the beautiful g5 and black is winning a piece because this bishop is trapped, right? And if you were scared about your king's safety, you would not make this move because, oh, I'm weakening my king. Maybe there will be something happening on the king side. No, right? A piece is a piece. We want to push g5, win that extra piece, and convert our advantage. So congratulations, Simon, for finding this move and overcoming your phantom fears. Let's sum up, folks, what we learned today. Phantom fears is one of the most common psychological issues that are causing people to make mistakes in chess, as I've witnessed as a chess coach. Chess is such a psychological game. It's all the stories in your brain, your past traumas, right? Traumatic experiences, your chess style, your persona, your personality in life, you know, they're all affecting these phantom fear continuum that you're residing, let's say, right? But when we talk about phantom fears, we generally talk about lacking objectivity because of passivity, because of overcautiousness, for example, right? You just are scared about something that is not real, right? You're overprotecting your pieces, your king, you're pulling back your pieces, for example. Or, for example, you're really scared of the enemy sacrificing something against you, right? I also seen so many patterns like this. Oh, my king will be shattered, his pieces are coming at me, but you're losing objectivity, right? It's just a whole different story that is going on in your brain. Suddenly the enemy pieces are growing in your head, right? And then this itself is causing this, in some sense, right? Self-fulfilling prophecy, right? All the stories you tell yourself turns out to be true in the end because you start playing passively and you lose objectivity, right? Like a chain reaction that is going on there. So what is the remedy to all this, right? How can we tackle phantom fears? Well, obviously by improving our objective analysis skills. That always helps, right? Fixing our fundamentals. For example, always judging the enemy threats in a concrete way. Obviously, we should really see whether we are facing a threat or not, but we should also try to identify the potential drawbacks of the opponent's last move, right? That's how we defeat phantom fears, because enemy also keeps making mistakes. They will keep blundering against you, but you should have this open mind, right? This mindset that, hey, you will call bullshit when they make bullshit moves against you, and you will try to punish them, right? This is so important also as you grow as a player, to be able to identify the potential drawbacks of the enemy move. Obviously, getting better at calculation is of course important, because if you're lacking calculation skills, if you cannot see, for example, 2 moves deeper, obviously, right, you start having phantom fears because you cannot see, everything is blurry, it's unclear, and suddenly, right, you don't want to go in any concrete line, so you refuse to take pieces and so on, right? So this is also important. You should work on your calculation skills, so the future becomes clearer, and once it becomes clearer, phantom fears might dissipate. And obviously, trusting your counter-attacking chances. We know that most of the time, right, active defense is the best defense in chess. So instead of pulling back the pieces, becoming over passive, right, we should also seek our counter-attacking chances and our resources in active counterplay in chess. And obviously, reflecting in our games finally, right? That's very important, because we are talking about psychological processes, folks. It's only you who can tell yourself objectively after the game what you were thinking during those moments. Very scared, you know, for example, having really anxious times and nervous times that actually blurred your judgment when you're playing. Were you disliking your position because of this, you know, enemy threats or phantom threats and so on, right? Because only you can do this properly. Of course, you can talk to your coach as well. You can go through this together with a stronger player. But at the end of the day, you must have objective analysis mindset to fix those psychological issues you're facing. We've all been there. No one is fully immune to all this, by the way, folks. It's always a continuum. I hope you enjoyed this video, folks. If you liked it, please send me a like so we can reach more people. You can check out my content on Chessable for similar content. For example, Chess Crime and Punishment. My course on Chessable contains a chapter on passive play and phantom fears. That's perfect for you to have a next step if you want to explore further these psychological issues that you're facing. And please send me feedback. Maybe I can continue showing you more examples with this concept. Do you want me to talk about other psychological issues in our chess life? Write down your comments on YouTube. I'll be reading them with great interest. See you next time. Bye-bye.